Hello, let's continue from where we stopped. As you can see from previous video, we started working on our Schwab client and we set basically the initializer method where we included all the items that we want to configure as our URLs. We injected config and set up logging, and then separated the base URL from the trader specific URLs. What we are going to do now, we are going to start writing remaining methods of authentication. So def start OAuth flow. Let's add a comment. Here we are starting the OAuth flow. If not, self config Schwab client ID raise exception. Please configure your Schwab ID. But if that's not the case, then for auth now we are building authorization URL. Auth params will be, so here we are going to configure how we are going to build our authorization URL. So client ID the value client ID will be Schwab client ID, and redirect URL will be our self-configured Schwab redirect URL. Not sure why I wrote URI. Okay. Those two params are sufficient for the moment, and let's remove this unnecessary spacing. Auth URL will be the f string which will consist of self auth URL and URL encode auth params. Wonderful. Let me finish this and we will go line by line after each. Self logger info starting flow. Here is what we want to add into our logger. Self logger info, and we want auth URL to be displayed to us to make sure that we configured it correctly. And at the end we will return auth URL. So what it does, this method which we built, it validates the configuration on the first step, builds authorization URL, that creates URLs where user will log into Schwab, properly encodes parameters to prevent URL issues, and add logging into the records for the process of authorization for further debugging. The URL structure here will look like, let me add a comment here, the URL structure will look like HTTPS API Schwab API.com version 1 OAuth client add spacing here, client ID equals to your client ID here, and redirect equals to HTTPS 127.0.0.1. So this is continuation for this line, for the line above, but because it, or even better, let's move it here and avoid any issues. So here we go. The usage example, how we are going to use all of this. Let's go to the end of this one. Usage example. Here we will have config equals Marcus config load config / Marcus JSON. You remember in our structure this file that we got, so this file will be our configuration source of truth for this method. Client will be equal to Schwab client and config, and the auth URL will be client start OAuth flow. Here is the method that we built, here is the usage of it. Okay, now let's analyze this one more time, and it will be all for this lesson. After this lesson, the next one, we will cover complete OAuth flow, authorization flow. So what we did, we created a method that validates the configuration, builds the authorization URL. Doesn't look much good. Then after this, it adds logger method, logging information for us later on to be able to debug, and it returns at the end the authentication URL. We added a structure how it's gonna look, and we also added an example of how this will look later on in our main code. Hope this was useful for you. See you next time. That will be all for today. Bye bye.